will be present in what is spoken and in what is heard. Were I so inclined, which I'm not, because I do not actually want to do that, I could introduce you to several people, one or two of whom might actually be here in this congregation right now. I could introduce you to several people who could affirm that, yes, I do, with undoubtedly annoying frequency, refer to myself as the queen of online searches. Now, I am willing to concede that this might betray a bit of hubris on my part, but I do think that I can fairly say that if you want to find something on the internet, the regular internet, not that dark site, I am more likely to be able to do it for you than lots of other people. Now, being the online search queen makes me, by default, a rabbit hole princess. Because one cannot look for, say, stereo cartridges for mid-century consoles discontinued decades ago, or images of child sacrifice to the Babylonian god Marduk, or an answer to the question of whether genome-wide meta-analysis of the identified chromosome 7p21 has in fact determined habitual caffeine consumption, which it has, in case you do wonder. One cannot seek out information like this without sometimes suddenly realizing one is wandering around this veritable warren of wonderful, disturbing, unexpected, thought-provoking, very peculiar things. And this reality pertains as much to biblical commentary in general and commentary on today's readings in specific as anything else. Now, you readers are not wanting to even try to tell you we're researching the Revelation text, but otherwise, I was quite happily wandering around the bottom of my rabbit hole, considering this and that, until I had seen so much about saints that I decided I should just talk about saints. Now, of course, that decision prompted its own set of questions. Who are these saints exactly? Prophets, apostles, martyrs, all those big names in church history? Any chance that this great communion includes anybody any of us might know personally? Well, as I tend to do when faced with a great candor, I decided to make myself a cup of tea. And as I got up from my seat, I saw all my grandmother's china there in the cabinet that my grandfather had made especially for her. And I remembered all the childhood Sunday dinners when, no matter how young and clumsy the guests at the table were, my grandmother served the food on that china. And I remembered all the special meals of later years when, no matter how young and clumsy the guests were, my mother plated the food on that china. And I remembered all the guests, some quite young and very clumsy, that I have fed using that china. And that prompted me to remember what retired Church of Scotland minister Tom Gordon once wrote about conceptualizing the meaning, importance, and wonder of the otherwise rather nebulous concept of a communion of saints. Deep inside each of us, he said, there's a table. The size and the shape and the composition of it does not matter. It does not matter if it's set with antique china or paper plates or banana leaves. What matters is who sits around it. Because these are the people, whether or not you even like them, these are the people who mean something to you, who influence you, who have touched you in some deeply personal way throughout the years through their engagement, their love, their insight, wisdom, challenge, and example with the value of their lives. The people around your table may be alive or dead. They may be intimate contacts for people you've never actually met, a favorite author or an artist perhaps. And it may be of greater or lesser importance. But because they matter to you somehow, in some way, there they are, sitting at your table. And together, they are your community saints. Consciously or subconsciously, in specific or vague ways, sometimes without any particular knowledge that it is happening, you commune with them. You sit down at your table and you talk. You listen, you learn, and absorb something from each of them. Like all those apostles, martyrs, and big names in church history, you too can hear a word or two from God spoken through those saints seated around your table. Your saints can influence, impact, and intervene for you. They can offer you insight, clarity, food for thought, a sense of peace, direction, decision, all sorts of things. If your saints are living in the here and now, you might be fortunate enough to be able to sit around a physical table with them and share in-table fellowship on that family time that you really ought to just often just use. Or maybe you consider out a virtual table and commune electronically. Or sometimes you might have to settle for the poignant, bittersweet blessing of simply being present. Sitting at the table with the silence of remembrance. But even after your saints move from one side of the Lord Whale to the other, they will still have a place at your table. Their influence does not necessarily diminish. Those of your saints who have gone on before you may no longer be with you in physical terms, but they will live on in the various bits that they have contributed to the you that you are. Their influence, the indelible impression they have made, their legacy, these things will always be available to you. Like it or not, you will always be in relationship with your saints. There's something else in all of this, though, that merits thought, and that is, at whose table are you sitting? Because I guarantee you that you are a saint, influencing someone, somewhere. Unsaintly saint that you might be, you are still a saint in someone else's communion, an everyday saint sitting at the table in someone's heart. You have saints, and you are a saint. Even if neither of you nor they are always practically perfect people. Because sainthood is not a reward for righteous living. Sainthood is the way that you are expected to live as a child of God. In other words, sainthood is not conferred by God as some part of a quid pro quo scheme. If you do this, I will bless you with that. Sainthood is what happens when you believe that God has said, because I love you and call you my children, I expect you to live in a certain way in order to experience and appreciate the extent of my blessing. So take heed of those saints seated at your table. Listen to their counsel, whether it comes in the form of a chat or a text or even an email. Heed their wisdom, challenge them if necessary, which it sometimes is, but accept their blessing always, because all true blessing is ultimately God. Take heed of those hosts at whose table you sit. Offer them your counsel, your wisdom, and your blessing, and listen carefully if they challenge you. And finally, and most importantly, remember that the home of God is among mortals. God has come to dwell with you. You and all your saints, you are God's people. God Because in the fullness of time, God will be there to pick up that napkin and wipe away every tear, and He will usher death and mourning and crying and pain out of the door, and He will take their place settings off your table and offer you and all your saints and every other member of the great communion a place in His own heavenly banquet. Be confident in this knowledge, because the one who is seated at the heavenly throne has said that these words are trustworthy, these words are true. So hear, indeed, what the Spirit who inspires and guides all God's saints